What's up, Helsinki? Good to see you guys. My first time here in Helsinki, and it's a beautiful city. Very happy to be here. I just came from the city, walked around. A question: when is summertime here? There's also, this is as summer as it gets.
It doesn't exist.
August 15th.
August 15th. And where is everybody? Like, I walked around, it's like, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys have like traffic accidents?
This is from Finland here.
This is all Finland? I mean, if you have a traffic accident here, you must be really bad to like get a car accident here. But it's a very beautiful city. I'm happy to be here. I'm based out of Seoul, Korea. Have you guys been in Korea before? Raise your hand. Yeah, Seoul alone is twice as large as the population of Finland, I realized. And so, but if you ever get a chance to come visit. It's a beautiful city. It's one of the hubs of blockchain in Asia. If you ever go there. Also, infamously, Terra is out of Korea too. All right, we go to just a little bit of background. I'm the head of APAC and Deputy General Counsel. Brief background. My former life, I was actually a U.S. Army officer, and then I went to law school, and then I worked in New York, Hong Kong, Singapore, and how I got into 1inch was actually my client, and so we just started working a lot, and I joined as their Deputy General Counsel. Now I'm doing a lot of the business development. Anyway, raise your hands if you heard of 1inch. Raise your hands. All right. Keep your hands up if you know why we're called 1inch. Let me explain why. It's not about a piece of somebody's body part. Okay, that's the common joke we get, but it's named after Bruce Lee's 1inch punch. You guys familiar with Bruce Lee? Right? So he's famous for the 1inch punch, and it represents our technology as fast, efficient, and powerful. And one of our co-founders, Sergey, he's a big fan of Bruce Lee, and he put these together, and that's how we got the name 1inch. We're also signed a partnership with the Bruce Lee family. You'll probably see it later in the year, but we're going to do a global marketing campaign combining Bruce Lee's philosophy and our philosophy. At first, I thought when I heard of 1inch, I thought this was like an Asian-based crypto project, but it turned out it's a lot of Europeans and Russians and Americans. And so, but I was like the first Asian hire, pretty much. What is 1inch? Just a quick background on what 1inch is. Its core technology is a DEX aggregator. We have about, I think, 70 to 80% of the DEX aggregation market compared to our peers. It's basically due our proprietary algorithm called Pathfinder. The Pathfinder algorithm allows us to get the best rates throughout, all the prices that you see and all the chains that you see. But basically, through the complicated algorithm system, it'll route the swap to various different liquidity sources, and then from that, you'll get the best rates, most of the time compared to our peers. I think we represent something about like 60% of the routing to Uniswap. Uniswap is the king of DEXs, but we are a core contributor to the growth of Uniswap. We support 10 mainnets, so these are the various liquidity sources that we use. Mainly Ethereum, but we support BNB, Polygon, Phantom, Clayton. All of these are EVM compatible. One of the core new technology is called Fusion. And so Fusion allows users to have swaps without having gas. And so there's a lot of times when people, especially retail users who don't have like an inventory of ETH, they'll just have, let's say, USDC, but they want to buy Aave tokens. They can't. They have to first buy ETH. But if you go into our Adapt, we have the Fusion function now where you can go and then press click, and if you just only have the USDC, you could get any token that you want, and it's on the back end. how it's really done is we have a concept called resolvers at the back end, and so the orders go. I don't know if I have the details on that, but the orders are fulfilled by a group of resolvers at the background, where they fulfill the orders and they make decisions based on whether the price that the user wants to buy is, profitable through various arbitrage opportunities, and so they'll pay the gas fees for the user. It's pretty innovative. You can learn more if you go into our website. If any of you are want to be resolvers or market makers on our platform, you can apply through our website and become one of those. It's a very profitable business for many of the resolvers. Some resolvers make about $1 million a month being a resolver for a network. And also for PMMs. PMMs, if you are a good private market maker, you can be a very profitable private market maker in our system. But that's pretty much a quick update. Just where have we been growing? We've been growing fast. So we first started monitoring APAC swap volume in August of last year. So that's when we started to develop APAC, and that's when we started, monitoring our trading volume. From August of last year, that's the start date when the APAC office opened, until March of this year, our global trading volume increased 2x. That's billions and billions of dollars. In APAC, we grew 3x. And a lot of the factors, I think, come apart because there's a slow shift from centralized exchanges going into DeFi, right? Because of the FTX fiasco, various, litigation going on. I think the FTX had a real big impact. During the FTX fiasco, our daily trading volume on 1xNet was 2 billion a day. And then during the USDC DPEG, our daily trading volume reached 4 billion a day. That's larger than many of the centralized exchanges that we have here. And so technology is pushing us that way, and we believe that the future of technology is in the DeFi sector, where it's going to push that where users will own their crypto, to make their own decisions. And that's really the philosophy of DeFi, right? Or blockchain. When Satoshi Nakamoto first started blockchain, his whole sort of a libertarian philosophy was take away the centralized authority, and the user should have control of their money. But then, there became centralized things masked in the philosophy of Bitcoin, of crypto. It wasn't really in the philosophy of Satoshi. It was more same centralized platforms, but disguised as blockchain philosophy. But it has shown now with all the crashes, all the problems that we had, that the users are now trending towards to more decentralized technology where the user owns their keys and their own crypto. I think part of the reason why I joined this conference was talk about law. Since I'm a lawyer, qualified in the United States in New York, and I want to talk about one of the most important things that I think people in the industry need to understand how DeFi works. And so has anybody heard of FATF? Okay. Yeah, FATF. They publish guidelines. I think Finland is a member as well. So the FATF is a international organization of member states, and they created their primary purpose is to prevent counterterrorism financing and anti-money laundering. And so the member countries group together. They create a guideline, right, on agreement of how should we work together as nation states of various countries to fight money laundering and terrorist financing, right? What happens is that, as you see in this picture, these are all member states. They get together, these guidelines are published, and once these guidelines are published, the member states are supposed to implement it, and the FATF grades a country on whether they were implementing. A lot of the recent FATF guidance on crypto was based on centralized crypto players. So basically, they have custody of third-party assets. And then you've heard of the crypto travel rule that follows the banking system's travel rule. And then, like all things, KYC, AML, which is very fundamental in the banking system. and SARS reporting and licensing. But there's a conundrum in DeFi. So the question is, in the FATF guidelines, it focuses more on centralized party, but the question on DeFi is, who controls the DeFi platform? Is it the DAO, the foundation, the co-founders? And who does the DeFi platform report to? It's not, in a centralized exchange, let's say, for example, Coinbase, it's based in the US and it's clear who they report to, the United States government. But in DeFi, you have transactions all over the world. Somebody in Thailand could have a swap with somebody in Kenya. So who do I report to, right? And obviously, the fundamental aspect of DeFi is there's no KYC. It's permissionless, right? And even if a DeFi platform wanted to apply for some vast license, if you look at the regulatory requirements, we can't even qualify to apply, right? Because we don't have a jurisdictional basis. Some will ask you to get like an ISMS security certificate. Like, what security certificate do we need? Everybody owns their own crypto. We don't, custody. So even if you wanted to apply, they'll just reject you because you don't qualify the basic. So, this is a problem. When I talk to regulators, they're taking existing centralized crypto regulations and trying to apply it to DeFi. It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And we keep explaining to them, 1inch is not an exchange. 1inch is an aggregator. And they get confused because they hear DEX, decentralized exchange. They think that it's similar to Coinbase, which is not, right? They tell me like, hey, can you tell me who did, who went through this and through your system? Do you know who they are? We're like, no, we don't do KYC. It's permissions. And so there's a lot of learning pains that we have with regulators. And I, as part of the legal team, we engage with regulators all the time, and they ask us questions. We are very cooperative. We try to help fight bad actors, but the first trouble is they don't understand our technology and what it does, and we try to apply like centralized exchange, centralized custody services, and apply what our requirements should be to DeFi platforms. So how should we reimagine regulations for this? And so this also parallels to, I guess, and this is really my personal view, that's the views of everybody 1inch, but it's more like a Google parallel, okay? So in Web 2, you have the internet, Web 3 is the blockchain, and then if you have a browser, which means you need a browser to navigate the internet, right? So before, in Web 1, it was very difficult to browse. You'd have to it was so hard, you had to type in some code and type somewhere, and you have to go through some telnet system to get it to, it was very complicated. And then Netscape was the first browser that made it very simple for an average user to use. Who remembers Netscape? And then Internet Explorer came, and then Google, Chrome came, and then search came, right? So you have the web browser, but then how do I navigate? You have to remember the website name and then type it in, and that was the way you had to search, go to the website. And then Yahoo came. Yahoo was sort of like a website organizer, and then Google was the first search engine, so that you could actually navigate through the search engine system. You need both, right? You can't just have a browser and no search engine. You just can't have a search engine without a browser, right? And so we think that the wallet is really the new browser for Web 3, and the aggregator, like 1inch, is really the search engine of Web 3. So imagine that, right? So what we're developing in 1inch is like a wallet where it has a lot of the functions you would see in a browser. So eventually the wallet's going to have chat functions. The wallet's going to have chat functions where you can send, let's say, 1 ETH to your friend who you're chatting with, instead of going to the send button, and it'll be a lot more easy way of sending crypto to your friends who are verified in your chat room. You can send NFTs in your chat. We expect banking functions to happen. Like you see in Aave, there's a lending function, right? It's really like a decentralized lending platform bank, right? That's going to replace the HSBCs or Citibanks, right? So whatever you think of and you see in the Web 2 browser world, our view is that you'll see it in the wallet, right? And then, like I mentioned earlier, in order for a browser to work, you need a search engine, right? And my view, and part of the reason why I joined was, one is just the search engine for the blockchain, in that sense, right? We, like Google, we have our algorithm and we have market domination about 70% of the DEX aggregation. We're going to help users find the tokens that they want or navigate through the blockchain space as Google does in the Web 2 space. This is just our philosophy. We think this is where the future of Web 3 is going to. You may agree or disagree, but this is our plan. And this is where we think we're going. We also have our own organic 1-inch wallet. I think it's one of the best in the space, better than many of our competitors, but I'm biased. So what's the better way to regulate DeFi? Think of it this way. When you search on Google, I presume everybody understands how a DEX aggregator works. Find the best prices. Sort of like it's sort of like Google, but it's also similar to like Agoda and Expedia, where you get the best prices and you search and you match people. But it's not really like Agoda, it's just a hybrid. There really is no definition. Like when Google first came out, people know what it is now. But when it first came out, people were having a difficult time describing what it is. I think at the early stages, people were describing it as sort of like a phone book. Right? How you categorize. If you guys remember phone books, a long time ago, there's thick yellow books where you just go through everything. And that's how people were reimagining what a search engine is, sort of like a phone book. Now, Google's part of our vernacular, and I'm still struggling to how to define a DEX aggregated to everybody. But it is sort of like a search engine and like the Agoda hybrid, but it works. So when somebody searches on Google and I want to buy Nike shoes, and Nike shoes is sold by Tom in the Philippines, and I use Google as a search engine to buy, and it turns out Tom's Nikes were fake. Whose liability is it? Is it Google? No one's going to say that, right? So in DeFi, my view is that when somebody searches for a swap between USDC and Aave tokens, and they do a swap, and it turned out that the owner of the USDC was a bad actor, let's say somebody from North Korea, is it 1inch's fault? Is it our liability? Because all we do is just route you guys to that, like what Google does, right? Google doesn't make you go and buy the Nike shoes. Like Google, we just help find, that's why it's called Pathfinder algorithm. We give you the path for the best execution. And it's between the user, the seller, and the buyer to do the actual swap and the contract execution. And so, should 1inch be liable for illicit activity done by that swap? My view is no. The problem is they don't understand how the technology works. And so it is our obligation, my job, to try to educate a lot of our regulators. What we can do, like Google, especially in the DeFi world, if you are in the DeFi space, we can do blocks. And so, for example, in Korea where I live, gambling and casinos are illegal. So if you look for gambling or casino, it's blocked, right? And if you're in the United States, where you have legal gambling, you have like PokerKings.com, sports betting, you can search, it's fine. It's jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And so, what we can provide is AML sanction file. We have all these lists of blacklisted wallets, SDNs on OFAC lists, all these wallet addresses that's published. we block it. If a country has specific wallet address that's native to that country, we can block it. And so we think that the regulation should be more of like a Google model instead of the banking model, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that the FATF is having right now. They have said that they're going to publish DeFi regulations, but they're still struggling. I've actually had talks with some of the FATF regulatory agencies who are working on these working groups, and half the time I was educating how technology works. Right? Without understanding how our technology works, it's hard to legislate something. But my biggest fear is you'll have legislation out there that mistakenly understands DeFi, and we're going to have very inefficient laws that will actually hurt the industry than help the industry. But we do, I'm not against laws. I mean, I love laws. I don't want, a lawless society where things are, going crazy. But I just want to balance. Right? It's very difficult. You can't over-legislate. You can't under-legislate as well. So what is that golden mean? It's tough to say. It's going to be a lot of trial and error. We're going to have these laws, and then it's not going to work in the real world, and we're going to have to tweak it. The governments have to be flexible because this is like the future of many, future of the economy of many countries. Right? So what does the future hold in DeFi? The regulators are working hard. I promise you, they're trying to understand, but it's hard. I mean, no one can just wake up one day and take a 1-week crash course and say, you know what, I understand DeFi. Now I know how to regulate this. So you got to give this some time. I'm still learning as I go along. I mean, every day is a learning experience. It's like, at least our team, we are at the tip of the spear in technology and innovation and blockchain. When I talk to the law firms that I work with, I'm like, dude, you can't Google our technology because it's not there. There's no publications. So you're just going to have to learn by talking to us. And you can't bill us for teaching you. But it's hard. And it's not very simple technology. It's complicated. I'm still struggling at times. But I think that it could go two ways. You could take the hard approach where everything will have to be KYC. So if you're using Uniswap, you're going to have to do KYC, which I don't think it will be really technologically feasible. I do think that a KYC version of DeFi and a permissionless DeFi can coexist. It's like Gmail versus Google.com. People who are working at Google use Google.com for email addresses, and they're obviously all KYC and members of Google. But people using Gmail, it's permissionless, but they still work, and they have different values, different value propositions to the world. I think the reasonable approach, like I said, is really, regulate like a Google search engine, as I expressed to you earlier. Instead of trying to fit the banking regulations and the existing crypto regulations for VAPS licensing, a new set of thinking needs to apply to DeFi. And it needs to be tailored toward that. It's a lot of work. Legislators to pass anything, getting the law and getting it passed in Congress, it's a lot of work. It may not come out. And then try to convey how DeFi works to other legislators to get your vote. It's not going to be easy. But, there's got to be a way. And that's what, 1H has been advocating for. And so I think this is it. I'll take some questions if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
So we talked about NPTF, and then we talked about rules. Yeah. So
It's on the commitment that will come on in a minute. Let's talk about it. The mic.
1 second.
It's on.
Try now.
Hello? Yes. No, it's okay. Okay, so you talked about both permission-based and permissionless DeFi.
Yeah.
So how do you see like the regulation going in different countries? Like which countries would go in which direction? What's your view? For example, some countries like in Western world would have their own view, and Korea and so on. And,
Yeah.
and others.
So how it works is FATF is all the member countries go in there and agree. Obviously, that they agree these core principles how they're going to try to pass the law. Korea is one of the first countries to pass it. Japan too. It's heavily influenced by the United States. The United States being the most wealthiest and most influential country in the world. The United States has a strong voice in how the final FATF guidelines work. But at the end of the day, each country is different. Just because the U.S. wants something to be outlined here doesn't mean the actual home country. And so it depends on like the appetite of the home country, whether they're going to take a more stricter approach or looser approach. Right? In Korea, I think took the moderate approach. I think Hong Kong, their crypto, they've changed their stance. They're just, hey, we're open for business. Just come here. We're going to make things easy. And so it all depends on a lot of political dynamics, government planning, what they want to do. The U.S., ironically, they're taking a very stricter approach for various political reasons. Last year, SEC Gensler was, the SEC and the CFTC were caught their pants down when the FTX fiasco happened. And so they're coming in 2023 with a vengeance, right? Because politically they can't, if you were a Gensler and you had 2022 FTX incident happening, and affected a lot of American consumers, what are you going to do? You can't do nothing. If you do nothing, then you're probably going to get fired. So you have to go overcompensate and go strong. And this year, 2023, has been one of the most active enforcement years that I've seen by the SEC. Everything's a security now. And everything needs to be registered to the SEC. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a question regarding the CDC and DeFi generals. So in general bills, DeFi could replace the commercial bank. What's your opinion on that? And would the commercial bank or traditional bank finance do some lobby against DeFi industry?
Oh, they're doing a lot of lobbying. Oh my God. All the hate we get in DeFi are mainly from the banking lobby in the United States. We get a lot of hate. A lot of hate. Because it affects their bottom line, right? I mean, if you think about it, I grew up in a generation where going to the bank, I actually had a bank passport, a physical passport for a bank, right? Growing up in Korea. And going to the bank was, a physical event. It was sort of like kind of like a pie in the sky event. We're like, wow, everybody's so rich in the bank. That was my view. And for me, HSBC, Citibank, they're very powerful banking institutions. But for my kids, HSBC is nothing more than an app. They've never been to a bank. They don't see the way I see. And so the banks are, I think, eventually their market share is going to go down. And maybe it's going to be like a Kodak moment, right? Where they're not, the Kodak, they failed to, adapt to the new technology of film to digital, camera. And maybe we're going through that right now at a slower pace, right? Where each and every day, people are using less fiat, but they're using more crypto, the lending platform, and stuff like that. So it's a matter of time, and my children, for them, HSBC, Citibank, they're meaningless. They're just apps. They're no different from objects, right? They don't if these institutions don't adopt to the new technology, it's a good chance they could be another Kodak. Right? Kodak was a very powerful, in the film industry, right? In the photograph industry. So, but who uses Kodak now? Nobody. Yeah.
In Nokia it's called in Finland it's called the Nokia moment.
Oh, is it the Nokia moment? Okay. Is that fun? Do you want to take one more question? Should I close it?
Maybe.
Up to you.
Last one, please. Come over here.
So I have this very positive view about regulation because I think that it will actually start regulating in some way because if some countries start to ban it, it will flock to other countries. Do you think there is this kind of dynamic? So countries are scared to go too hard because then they might lose their market share in what might be the future of finance.
Yeah. So Hong Kong's a good example. A lot of the major crypto projects are leaving the United States and going offshore. I think Coinbase started Coinbase International in Bermuda. Hong Kong sees this as an opportunity. It's mainly the PRC government, right? The PRC government sees this opportunity to take over, become the leader of blockchain globally. So the way they're doing it is, like gambling is legal in mainland China, but if you go to Macau, which is part of China, it's legal. And Macau is, I think, has surpassed in gambling volume in the world over Las Vegas. And they're seeing Hong Kong as the Macau blockchain. You can't do crypto in mainland China, but if you go to Hong Kong, you're good. And so they want to use that as a hub for technological innovation to attract more crypto projects to go. And so regulators are aware of that. They make sort of like regulatory bets that if I loosen this, then I'll gain economically here. So that calculation is there. Thank you for having me. My final thought is I flew in yesterday. I think I told you I was a U.S. Army officer, and the driver was asking, "Hey, you don't look Finnish. Where are you from?" And he said, "Oh, I'm from Afghanistan." I said, "Oh, how did someone come from Afghanistan to Finland?" He said, "Well, during the war, through this UN program, I was one of the lucky lottery winners. I was able to bring my whole family to Finland." He was a captain, and he said that if my family grew up in war-torn Afghanistan, it's terrible. I grew up in Kabul, and Finland has really changed my life. My daughter's a nurse, trained to be a doctor, and my life has turned 180 degrees. And so, just my impression was, wow, Finland, is a great country, and gave this opportunity to these immigrants and stuff like that. It just brought a very positive impression of Finland and Helsinki. And I feel the same way. So thank you for having me, and I hope to see you guys again in the near future.